Please note that all BASWA members are here except for Kerr, Juergens, and Dorn. Open Meetings Act is on the wall and accessible to the members of the public. We'll start with the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by BASWA and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless BASWA members so request. Item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. And item D, approval of minutes of the regular meeting on August 5th, 2024, as on file in the city clerk's office. Anyone want anything pulled off? If not, Mr. McLean.
I move the items listed under the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Your vote, please. And that passes. 1, 2, 3, 8. There's no public hearings tonight. We have one resolution. It's resolution number 71, authorizing the issuance of the agency's solid waste disposal facilities revenue bond series 2025.
I move that resolution number 71 be passed and adopted.
Second.
As we talked for some time, the landfill that we're currently, or the cell that we're currently in at the landfill is getting towards the end of its life, and so we have acquired ground on the south side of the road out there. We acquired that land back, I think, in the 90s, so the city's owned it for quite some time, but we're looking to develop a new MSW landfill on the south side of the road out there to then build into that particular site. The C&D site's already over there, and so we've been working with Burns McDonald to do all the design work. And so there's 2 bid packets out. One's for the dirt work and then another one for the building and the scale house and that kind of stuff. Those are currently out for bid. And so the next step is we're lining up financing. And so when doing so, we reached out to Jay Spearman and working with some bonds. And so Jay, you want to come up and talk to us about what bonds we're looking at? And
thank you for being here.
Thank you. You have before you a resolution not to exceed $16 million in bonds to be issued in one or more series. After working with Mr. Templemeyer and looking at the current rate environment, as well as the security behind the repayment of these bonds, right now the difference between rated bonds and non-rated bonds is roughly about 80 basis points or 0.8%. Now, also looking at revenue bonds, then you can add another 0.2% onto that. And so the difference between rated and non-rated revenue bonds is about 100 basis points or a full percentage point. And so I know one of the questions that some of you folks may have is, why does the city obligate their general obligation taxing authority as a pledge for repayment of these bonds? It's my understanding that the city, in the life of BASWA, has never actually had to levy a tax for any type of repayment on these bonds, and it's anticipated that going forward that would be the case as well. But by having that general obligation backing authority for the repayment of these, as well as the revenues generated by the operation of the landfill, there's about 100 basis points difference in that. Now, when you're looking at $15 million up to $16 million paid back over a 25-year period, that 100 basis points or full percentage point difference in interest rate equates to about $3.5 million in interest expense. And so that's why the general obligation backing by the city, even though you don't intend to use it, ultimately benefits the BASWA agency by being able to obtain a lower interest rate. Now, we have an in-house person that does the analysis on what they expect the rating of the city's general obligation authority to be. And through our preliminary analysis, their estimate was a kind of a AA2 category. And that is extremely well and a good rating. The reason for that being is the low debt to assessed ratio of the city, meaning that you don't have a lot of bonds outstanding, as well as the good cash position that the city currently has as far as a cash reserve. And so I believe it's the intent, after talking with Mr. Templemeyer, that we would proceed with the rating sometime either later this month or the beginning of 2025, and then potentially market the bonds later in January 2025 with closing in February for the first issuance. And then once you have bids back for the actual building itself, then you can move forward with the second issuance in the spring.
Questions, gentlemen?
It's not to our advantage to issue them all at once.
Excuse me?
It's not to the city's advantage to issue the bonds all at once, to do it in 2 segments.
Well, I believe the reason for the issuance of the bonds in 2 issues is because you're going to have, by the time we issue the first series, you'll have your bids back for the actual project. And then the reason for waiting on the second is waiting for those bids to come back, so that way we don't over-issue
Okay.
bonds, basically, yes. As well as hopefully the interest rate environment improves the longer we wait. But that's a guess as well.
Yep, it can go the other way.
Correct.
All right,
think
thank
so.
you.
Jay, let's see if I'm sorry, I read this really fast this morning because I've been in Lincoln all day, but was there a 6.5% interest rate in there, or was it up to 6.5%? So that's just giving yourself a huge leeway.
It's not to exceed 6.5%.
Right. And if they were issued today, what would they be?
We'd be right around 4.5%.
That would be more, yep. Are the bonds callable?
The bonds will be callable after 5 years, anytime on or after 5 years, just as typical with municipal bonds in the state of Nebraska.
I knew it was for GO, but I didn't realize it was for revenue bonds. So they're callable after 5 years?
Yes.
So if rates go the other way, we can do something different with them?
Yes.
Okay.
And so during the life of a bond issue, you can do what's called an advance refunding one time. And that's before the call date, you can actually issue another series of bonds. The proceeds from that advance refunding go into an escrow account. They make all the payments on the old bonds until the call date. And so you still have that option. So if 2 years down the road, interest rates are back down to where they were 4 years ago, 3 years ago, you can actually move forward before that call date.
Yep.
But you can only do that one time during the life of an issue.
So are we subject to arbitrage in these bonds also?
You will be subject to arbitrage rebate on 3 things. On the construction fund, and so we don't earn more than what we're paying. A debt service reserve fund, as well as a debt service fund. Now, as long as you zero out that debt service fund once a year, you're perfectly fine. And I was talking with Mr. Templemeyer before the meeting, is our intent right now, because you have the general obligation backing of the city, that we would try to move forward without funding a debt service reserve fund. Just because of the simple fact of, I'm sure your revenues are sufficient, as well as the GO backing. There's no point in issuing an additional $1 million
Right.
to fund a debt service reserve fund.
Yep. Okay.
Other questions? Thank you. Anybody from the public? If not, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No ordinances tonight. Anybody here for the public forum? Seeing none. Mr. McLean, let's move for adjournment.
I move the meeting be adjourned at 7:09 PM.
Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. All right, if you'd just please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, we will start the City Council meeting. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please note that all council members are present except for Councilman Kerr. Once again, the Open Meetings Act is posted in the meeting room and is accessible to the members of the public. The first consented agenda item will be the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on November 18th, 2024, as on file in the city clerk's office. Mr. McLean.
I move the items listed under the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Your vote, please.
You gotta turn yours off.
That passes 7-0. Okay. Next thing we need to do is receive the certification of the election as we turn into the new council. So, Mr. McLean,
I move the certificate of election of the November 5th, 2024 general election as certified by the county clerk be received and placed on file.
Second.
all's good. What's that?
Do we have a second?
Yes. Mr. Fralin, yeah. Yep. Okay, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Next, we need to approve the council members' public officials' bonds.
I move that the following public officials' bonds be received and placed on file. Council members Gary Barnard, State Farm Fire and Casualty Company, Alex Eckloff, Western Surety Company, Ted Fairbanks, State Farm Fire and Casualty Company, and Dana Heido, Traverse Casualty Surety Company of America.
Second.
Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Before we move on to the next item, I would like to present a plaque to Tim Fralin and thank him for his service for the city council. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Bob. You bet. I think you've been a good member, and appreciate it. As you said, we'll see you down the road. And maybe short.
Your mama.
All right, with that, we will switch seats.
Oh, I need to take that with me.
You can take the whole thing.
Just in case you forget who you are.
That's
I'll remember.
Oh, no, you won't. Hello.
So for tonight, we'll have Dana take Rich's spot, and we'll have Alex take Tim's spot, and then next week we'll have a new seating assignment. So first we have to swear you in.
Okay, I just need you to raise your right hand and read that out loud to me. Sign it.
All together?
All together.
I, Dana Heido, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska against all enemies, foreign and domestic, faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without reservation or reservation, and that I faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of council member according to law and to the best of my ability. And I do swear that I do not advocate nor am a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States by force or violence. Or the state. There is a time as I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the United States. By force or violence, so help me God.
Holy cow. I've got some pen. I have a pen for you, Gary, if you want. If you want to just sign.
You guys would not make it as a singing group.
No.
I think it would have been easier to do it myself.
Not with any practice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, we came in for 2 hours of practice.
I don't doubt that. This is the good part.
That was all the better we got.
Hey, bud.
How we doing?
Okay.
Eighth time I've done it, and it's still this nitty gritty.
Listen to your neighbor.
Okay. The next item is the election of the city, or the council president. Is there any nominations for the council president?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to nominate Mike McLean as council president. And I'm going to make the motion that I need a second, and then I'll just make a motion.
I'll second it.
So if there's, excuse me, if there's no, is any other nominations? I'd just like to move that we still have to vote, correct?
Correct.
I move that we move to an immediate vote.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Council President Mike McLean, all in favor? And that passes 8-0.
Barely made it, Mike.
No, I was gonna
Congratulations,
vote no, but that'll look bad.
Congratulations.
Mike, you've done a great job for a number of years, so thank you for stepping up for one more year. Okay, consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be acted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussions of these items unless a council member so requests. Item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item E, approval of the treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $1,322,475.09. Item F, approval of BASWA report of claims in the amount of $48,769.37. Item G, approval of pay request number 4 in the amount of $308,860.52 to Constructors Incorporated for the 33rd and Lincoln Street reconstruction project as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Resolution number 7448, executing Exhibit B to the master permit agreement with NPPD for the joint use of poles owned or operated and maintained by NPPD as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Resolution number 7449, executing the year-end certification of City Street Superintendent form. Item J, resolution number 7450, appointing Jason Moore as a city's certified city street superintendent. Resolution number 7451, appointing various employees to the City of Beatrice Retirement Community. Item L, resolution number 7452, executing the request for reconveyance and the deed of reconveyance along with all other necessary documents to terminate the deed of trust for the energy efficiency loan agreement dated June 24th, 2020 between the city and Gary A. Stanton and Amisla J. Stanton. Anybody want anything pulled off? Mr. McLean?
I move the items listed on the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Passes 8-0. All right. No, you can have it. Yeah. I'm going to. Yeah, right, just let him know. Jay, you're more than welcome to stay, or you're certainly, thank you for your help, and you can head your way back up. So it's up to you. I know it's an exciting night, so. We just want to thank you for coming down and explaining that, so you bet. Okay, tonight, item 3 is public hearings and bids. We have a public hearing for the purpose of considering amending section 307A, V, and AA of the zoning ordinance of the City of Beatrice, ordinance number 94-13. As such ordinance relates to the agricultural sales and services, pet sales, and veterinary services, and table 4-2 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Beatrice, ordinance number 94-13, relating to the permits, uses by zoning district. So,
all right, so much of you guys on this board here know that a lot of our code has been written decades ago, and a lot of things weren't written that well, and a lot of things need to be updated from time to time as our city changes and grows. The proposed amendments you have tonight are our attempt to update our code and clean up a few things. Currently, as our code is written under 307A, agricultural sales and services, you can have a tree trimming business, but you can't operate a lawn mowing business and many other agriculturally related services. So the mayor and I got together, we reviewed these things called SIC codes, and for those of you who are unfamiliar, these are developed by the Department of Labor as a way of kind of classifying certain industries. We looked, and under the umbrella of agricultural services, there were a number of things that our code doesn't permit, but that are commonplace nowadays. The proposed amendment is to include more of these agricultural services, things related to lawn and grounds maintenance services, which may include but not be limited to rock lawn, rockscaping, sodding, mowing services, seeding, fertilizing, things of that nature. While we were looking at this particular section of code, we also noticed that, Tobias noticed, he's had a itch with this for years, but pet services and veterinary services weren't very well written. So our proposed amendment here is to divide those up between sales and services, just to clarify and clean up that language along with the agricultural sales and services. The second thing to this that is also related is our table 4-2, which discusses the permitted uses by zoning district. We really just made a few changes in here as to where things are allowed by right and where things are allowed by special use permit for agricultural sales and services, the pet sales, as we would call it moving forward, and veterinary services. And with that, we'll open it up to questions or comments.
Start up here with the council. Comments, questions? Yes.
When the code committee looked at this was one of the ones that had some things that wasn't quite understandable, and we looked at it and we concurred with the city administrator, and that's where we left it.
Okay, thank you. And just as a point of clarification, if you want to look up the SIC code, you'll find that the description for lawn and garden services are under the Department of Labor and Occupational Safety and Health and Administration's 07, which is the major group of agricultural services, and industry group 078, landscape and horticultural services, which include Bermuda sprigging, cemetery upkeep, garden maintenance, garden planting, lawn care, lawn fertilized, lawn mowing, lawn mulching, lawn seeding, lawn spraying, lawn squigging, mowing highway center strips, seeding, sod, and turf installation. Does not qualify artificial turf because that is the one thing that is classified as construction industry under 1799. With that, if we don't have any more discussion in here, we'll turn it over to the public.
While they're debating who's going to come up first, I will just note that P&Z did hear this earlier tonight, and their recommendation was to not approve this change.
Okay. And it's now open for anyone that wants to comment.
Margaret Haith, 104 West Granville. I attended that P&Z meeting, and it was not only voted no to approve it, it was voted unanimously to not approve this. So I realize that this city council and the mayor, you really pride yourselves on being transparent. Well, I'm here to tell you, you nailed it on this one. In fact, I think you were so transparent that I could see the writing on the wall as to what this council was going to do. So Beatrice has a code, an ordinance, and someone very cunningly figures out how to skirt that ordinance, and they are violating it. And a little while later, someone else comes along and talks to the mayor, talks to the rest of the city council, starts coming to the council meetings to point it out to the public that this person is in violation of that code. And he doesn't ask that you put him out of business. He doesn't ask that you tear his building down. He just merely asks that you adhere to that ordinance and have him relocate his business. And so what does this council do? You change the ordinance. You change the ordinance so this person will no longer be in violation. So is that how you do it here in Beatrice? Because if so, are you going to extend the same favor to the guy that's running a lawnmower repair service out of a building on his property over in Glenover, a property that is registered as a residential with no business? I mean, after all, fair is fair. So Anyway, that's my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else?
David Rayburn, 100 West Mulberry, here in Beatrice. I have a comment to make to the group though first, because it's been told by some of the council members that I'm here to try to put Greenway out of business, but that's not true. Greenway started their business 10 years ago. It's been in business for 10 years. It's got big backing behind it, and it'll be here for another 10 years, I'm sure. But it doesn't have to be on the property that it violated by creating their business in an unrestricted area. And they've been doing it for 14 months, and you guys haven't done anything. So now tonight it's the time to clear it up. So the mayor did what he said he was gonna do. He was gonna insert the lawn mowing thing into the codes. So I'm sure, because the way that the city is structured, as Margaret had said, that it will pass in some fashion. But I can tell you that the discussion that we had, which both the city attorney and the administrator were there, which they didn't tell you, was that part of the problem with the Planning and Zoning Committee was there's two factions to this. The first part of it is adding the lawn mowing service to agricultural services. Now, we're all from Nebraska, most of us probably, but agriculture to me is just what it says. When you go to search agriculture, it says agriculture is based on producing food, basically. So it's generating, corn, beef-fed meat, chickens, whatever. But it doesn't include the accessory stuff like the lawn mowing. What you got included in there now, Mayor, is rocks. So if you want to deliver rocks, you're in an agricultural zone, then you're okay. Which doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what you've got got everybody to believe. So you as a city council have to do this for the city. You have to figure out which way the city's going to grow. So if you take away everything that's meant for agriculture, which is supposed to be food, fiber, and other things through farming and animal husbandry, it is not about, I'm trying to get the right word here, but it's not about the maintenance of your yard. That's not agriculture. Agriculture is producing food, producing grain, producing corn for livestock and for people's substance to live on. So if you want to change the ordinance, do it right. Don't just stuff it in there because you want to get it done and help out somebody. Do it because it's right. Do the right thing. At the end of the day, Mayor, you got to do the right thing, right? So don't stuff it under agricultural. Make it some greens maintenance services. You got 15 other services in the ordinance already. So create another one. Rather than stuffing it under agriculture, call it what it is. It's a grounds maintenance ordinance. It's another service that you add. And that's just part of it. So if you were to approve this, then that means that anybody could open up a lawn shop outside the city limits, and pretty soon the city will turn into just can't think of a good word, bastardization. It's just going to be all over the place. Well, that's what we are today with mom and pop lawn mowing services, and that's great because they're doing it as their own business. It's one person deal. They're doing it out of their garage. They're making money to help live. But this is a commercial business. Commercial business, been in business for 10 years. Changing this isn't going to affect him at all because he's already in business. He was in business when he moved out there. So the city attorney alluded to making him go out of business. Well, that's not what it's about. It's about when he asked the board to create a plot, he could have said then he was going to move his business out there, but he didn't. That's my whole problem with this, is he didn't do it right in the first place. But the mayor's helping him 14 months later. They didn't charge him with doing an ordinance illegally. and doing a business. They didn't do anything to him. If I was to do that, because I don't have the privileged individual behind me, I probably would have been docked. I probably wouldn't have been fined. I probably would have, whatever I was doing would have been stopped. But I ask you to do the right thing on the agricultural side. Just if you want to do it, just do it right. Take it out of the agricultural and put it where it belongs. I know you're trying to do the SIC code, but that's a Department of Labor. They do that for certain reasons. The Nebraska statute does not define lawn care as an agricultural business. Nebraska statute is what the city is supposed to be built on, but you didn't even reference that. You went to the Department of Labor, the IRS code. So I go to fill my taxes, and what IRS code do I got? The same as the SIC code, because the Department of Labor said it. Doesn't mean that the city of Beatrice should live by that. They should go by the Nebraska statute for the agriculture code, which does not include lawn equipment, or lawn care. All I'm saying is, don't just pass this because it's here. Do the right thing. Go back to the ordinance committee, which Gary Barnard is part of, and do it right. Create another service, and then go through it from there. The second part of this, which you want to approve, is table 4.2. So I've been to several of the planning and zoning meetings, and they seem to be rubber stamped, somewhat like this committee. But there's not very much discussion. They just talk about the resolution, and then they all approve it, but there's no discussion. 4.2 takes the planning and zoning out of it completely. So what should have happened in the first place before this person got his permission, got his build permit, he should have asked for a special use permit. And then that would have been denied because there is no availability for lawn care in the ordinance today. So, but when you change table 4.2, you take it out of planning and zoning. What's the reason to be on planning and zoning? Is to help protect our borders, help protect our city zoning. They're the ones that look at it first and say, oh wait, it doesn't agree with the 9-year plan or the 10-year plan or whatever, and you can't just put something in there in place. We have to deny your special use permit because you can't have a building out there. So pay attention to planning and zoning. If you approve this 4.2 table change, you're saying to the planning and zoning committee, we don't need you. Eventually, you won't even have one because there'll be no reason to have one because all the special use permits will be gone. So in the agricultural zone, you have special use permits, and under the special use permits, you have the availability of what businesses can be in there, and lawn care is not. So that's what this whole thing is about. Providing lawn care an avenue to get into the agricultural zone, which is across the street from me. I look out my kitchen window and I see it every day. And it's disappointing that they got that far because they didn't tell the planning and zoning committee in the first place, or they didn't apply for a special use permit, what they should have done when they opened business, September of 2023. And I stand in front of you today, they're asking for a change to the ordinance to allow that. And I'm just saying, if you're gonna do it, fine, but do it right. Don't just jump and just say, okay, let's just throw it in there and let's just do it, because that's not right. And if you don't do the right thing, then there's nothing I can do to stop you. I've been here for the last 6 meetings trying to tell you guys that it's out of order. And what do? You change the ordinance, so bingo, we're in with that. So I don't know what there is else I can say to try to persuade you guys not to vote this in. Send it back to the right committee. Have them rethink what they're doing. Put the ordinance in correctly, and do the right thing. Okay? Thank you.
Next, anyone else?
All right, I just have some questions on why it's...
Name and address.
Caleb Allen, 203 South 21st Street, and I'm just not sure why it's not in the compliance code under ag, because to treat a yard, I have to get certified by the state of Nebraska, the Department of Ag, to even treat a yard. and I'm not operating a business out of there. It's a storage unit that we built, and I have equipment in there. I mean, the goal or the plan was to build the storage unit, build a house, and have everything all together. But I mean, there's no reason we'd want to build a house next to a guy like this. I mean, we're not doing anything wrong. It's a 50 by 75 building, cold storage, there's no water, there's nothing out there, there's no customers going in and out of it. So I don't know what the issue is. That's all I got.
I don't know if I heard Caleb correctly, but did he say he had no power out there?
No, he did not. He said he didn't have any water.
Well, he didn't have water, but he has electric that the city ran out to his shop, and he has, I believe he has cable, because I saw the cable guys. But, so the city does offer him some stuff, and he says it's a storage unit, but okay, whatever. You guys believe who you want, but I'm there every day. I see his trucks and his two guys that
You
work for him.
clarified it.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Bob,
Yes.
I'd like to say something. When this came up, I don't know how many months ago, I know a guy that lived out like Caleb on a gravel road, and I asked him what he thought about it. And he said, well, when he's going up and down the road, the trucks was making too much dust and he's driving kind of fast. And I asked this guy, what'd you do about it? And Caleb, you'll know who this is. He said, I called him and asked him to come over and talk to me. And the next day it was all over with. They were driving correctly and there wasn't much of dust on the road and things like that. And this guy also told me that another neighbor to him said, I didn't even know we had a problem out here. So I hope that eases some of the comments that were made towards you, Caleb.
Anyone else?
You weren't gone long.
Well, I knew somebody would show up, and I'd have to get up here and talk. Tim Fralin, 405 Mulberry. I live just down the road from Allen's building. I can tell you I received 20 times the amount of traffic on that road than anybody else, especially anybody that lives right across the street from that shop. The shop is a storage facility. If you look up the business address, it has nothing to do with Mulberry Avenue. So I'm not sure why we keep coming back to this. The one thing I want to clarify is me and Councilman Doyle were thrown under the bus a few weeks ago by the gentleman that spoke up here earlier. I never once had a conversation with that gentleman that said the mayor and Templemeyer have control of the city. And I sure in hex am not the other word he said, so I won't say that again. So I think after he got lambasted on Facebook with his silly post, that he should know better than to come back here because the community supports Mr. Allen's business and where it's at. The storage facility that he spoke about is all it is. I've been out there. I've only seen electric. There is no water. So there's no reason to continue going on down this path with the same guy coming up here talking all the time. If you pass the ordinance, you pass the ordinance. That's completely up to you guys. But as far as a neighbor, I don't have a problem with them speeding up and down the road. I have more problems with, we'll just call them big trucks. There's a construction company down the road. There's all kinds of traffic that, I put up with the same dust, so 20 times worse than what he is. So I would encourage you to continue the path that I think you're going to take and go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did the planning and zoning give us a reason why they are voting no on this?
Yes. So some of them felt that Mr. Allen was unneighborly, as well as they didn't see eye to eye with myself on that our code needs to be updated from time to time. I don't believe this has been touched for at least since the 90s, maybe even all the way back to the 70s. They thought that this was for one particular person to benefit him. I reiterated no less than 5 times that we've got dozens of similarly situated businesses around the community that serve the community. Times have changed since this code was written. Back in the day, most people mowed their own lawns. Today, that's just not the case. And we've got several businesses around the community that still provide those services and other services, which is why we didn't just say lawn care services. So we decided to expand our definition and bring it up to date, and they did not see eye to eye with myself on that.
Okay.
Any other discussion needed? The only parting comment I would say is I know that Mr. Rayburn thinks this is about him, but it's not. If you look at the codes, it's outdated. And I would disagree with the description that agricultural service does not include landscape, because it does. I think if you look at the major institutions, from a 2-year school to a 4-year school and beyond, you will find that lawn service horticulture will fall into the agricultural college. And so I know you're saying it doesn't, but it does. And so with that, if there's no other comments, let's close the hearing.
Bob, I do have a comment.
Okay.
Not necessarily about this. I'd have lots of things to say about this, but I'm going to let it go. When we've had this conversation repeatedly. We don't know when this ordinance was done. We don't know when this ordinance was updated. Going forward, can we put a little footnote in that? Just so that council, just so those future councils know.
So
The idea of lawn care services, I know I'm getting old, but when I was a kid, there was no such thing as lawn care service. You hired the neighbor kid to do it. If you had a big project, if you had, the school, they had their own, the maintenance guy did it, or the cemetery guy did it. So it just didn't exist. I mean, the guy that invented bottled water, he's still laughing about it. If I would have told you, come on. All these things, they are outdated, but I think we need to put a footnote in it. And I really think it's a little unfortunate the way that we got the thing from P&Z. I think they kind of got off on maybe they don't like the neighbor. I'm glad they can't vote somebody out because they don't like you as a neighbor. I probably wouldn't be able to live in town. So I'm just saying. So. But yeah, I think we need to put a footnote in.
I'm a little nervous about putting those footnotes in because there's probably a lot of these that were done when I was there. My name's going to be all over these.
I do think it makes very good
I'm just
sense,
kidding.
because I do know this ordinance was put in place in the 1970s, probably the early 70s.
Oh, good. Thank you for that.
And I know that in the early 70s, I probably graduated from college or from high school, so I do know how old these ordinances are. Yeah. So, Mr. McLean, let's close the hearing.
I move the public hearing be closed at 7:43 p.m.
Second.
Your vote, please. That passes 1, 2, 3, 4.
Rue, you're not turned on there.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go. 8-0. Okay, we'll move on to resolutions. Resolution number 7453, adopting disadvantaged business enterprise, DBE program for the FAA fiscal year 2025, 2026, and 2027 for the Beatrice Municipal Airport.
I move the resolution number 7453 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So as part of our federal grant for some of the improvements out at the airport, we have to pass this disadvantaged business enterprise policy, if you will. Basically what it boils down to is it says the city will not exclude or deny benefits or discriminate against someone on a contractual basis on the basis of their sex, color, race, or national origin.
Any discussion needed? If not, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Resolution number 7454, executing the Second Amendment to the agreement dated November 6, 2023 between the city and Hoppy & Son LLC in order to acknowledge the completion of certain contingencies and to change the closing date to May 5, 2025.
I move the resolution number 7454 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So again, we've been working with Hoppy on the Kensington downtown. The closing date was supposed to be here sometime in the month of December. Hoppy has reached out to us, asked us to extend that closing date to May 5th of 2025. They have requested, so they have allowed time to secure their gap financing on this project. And so I know that they're working on that because we've been in contact with them about various applications they're going to make to the city for some additional funding. But that's the reason for pushing it back. But everything else is going on schedule and on plan.
Seeing no discussion, your vote, please. 8-0. Resolution number 7455, executing the grant agreement and any other documents necessary to effectuate the Nebraska Department of Economic Development Rural Community Recovery Program Grant 23-RCRP-039 for the purpose of purchasing and installing ADA-compliant playground equipment and other outdoor recreational equipment.
I move the resolution number 7455 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So, again, this was originally was the Kensington grant that we got that we had to turn back because it's ARPA dollars and because of the federal strings that were attached to it. But again, we're getting $985,000. We have to have the money spent by September 30th of 2026. We're going to do some various playgrounds around the community. Good news, there's no environmental review with these dollars. Bad news is we have to sign a 20-year covenant on any ground that we have that we use these funds on. We're hoping to get a copy of that covenant here shortly so we can review it and see exactly what that entails. That was informed us today, the 20-year covenant. So good news, bad news, federal dollars, good time.
Discussion. Seeing none, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Resolution number 7456, prohibiting parking along the north side of Irving Street located west of Highway 77, aka North 6th Street.
I move the resolution number 7456 be passed and adopted.
Second.
This is by the new apartment complex that's on Irving Street there that would be west of KFC. The north side of that property there is Irving Street. We've allowed parking on both sides of Irving Street. Last winter, the snow removal guys had some issues trying to get down that street with cars parked on both sides. And so they reached out to us this time and said, hey, can you please remove parking off one side or both sides? And so traffic committee sat down and reviewed it, and we've recommended that we remove parking on the north side of the street just so we can do some snow plowing through that area. We talked about trying to do some different things, just during certain snow events. I thought that getting that communication out is difficult. And there's a whole parking lot there to the west of that building that is underutilized that they can park in. So it's not as if they don't have a place to go and park if we remove parking on the north side of the street.
Yeah, the parking was going to be my question. Is there enough? Because I've driven by there and it's parked cars on both sides from basically the beginning of the apartment complex west. But as long as they have some place to park, I don't have a problem taking it off.
Anybody from the public? Okay, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Resolution number 7457, authorizing and approving the issuance by the Beatrice Area Solid Waste Agency of BASWA's Solid Waste Disposal Facilities Revenue Bond Series 2025 and the pledge by the city to levy a special tax on all taxable property within the city sufficient to make up any deficit in the revenues of the BASWA's facilities in order to pay the principal of and the interest on such bonds.
I move the resolution number 7457 be passed and adopted.
Second.
These were the bonds that Mr. Spearman was here earlier and spoke to you about. BASWA passes resolution, city passes resolution, and then the county will have one at their upcoming county board meeting.
Discussion here? Yes.
So T, this is like next to the budget, this is the biggest thing that we've seen in 2 years. So can you tell me, whenever this you do bring this to market, does that come back here? Or when are we going to know about the interest rate and annual debt service, whether it's 4% or 6.5%? I mean, 0.5% on $16 million is $80,000. So and that's the first year. So it's kind of a big deal what the interest rate ends up being. That's my first question.
So generally, no, once these resolutions authorize myself to issue the bonds when the timing is right. And so we'll work with Mr. Spearman, we'll work with Hannah, find out exactly when we need to see the cash flow come back into the city, and then look to issue market bonds at that time.
All right. My second question is, and this is no reflection on this gentleman at all. In fact, he's been here a long, long time, or his firm. But at what point do we decide whether or not we're just going to let it out and pay him 120 grand as compared to bidding this thing out and making sure we're getting the right interest rate? And believe me, I understand at least as good, if not better than most people here, how much work that takes to do that, all right? But it's $16 million and 30 years that we're going to be tying up the city. And we're tying up not only the revenue, but we're tying up general obligation in case for some weird reason it doesn't generate enough money to pay the bonds. So I'm just curious about when we would decide to bid a bond issue and when we don't, since I haven't been here.
Are you talking about when would we go out for somebody to do Jay Spearman's services that he provided to us? So for years we used Emeritus and used Mark Mumford, and and the airport had a different guy, but we used Emeritus. And then one day Emeritus completely stopped offering that entire service, and Mr. Spearman and some others left and formed a new company, and we went with them at that time. We've done a BPW bond, did one with, I believe, Edward Jones at one point. So we've tried some other ones, and quite honestly, with any money you might save, the additional amount of staff time that we required to get somebody back up to be able to handle these types of issuances for the city is difficult. But if you'd like us to, we also have some number of other issuances coming out, and if you want us to look for some other services, we certainly can go shop around and see what's there.
Honestly, I'm like on the bubble with this. I'm just not really sure because you can look in the newspaper and find out what 30-year revenue bonds are being issued for right now. That's why I asked him what the rate was going to be. It's just we want to get the best that we can get. And this, I don't mind $1 million, $2 million paving district or something, but this is $16 million for 30 years. So I'm a little uneasy about just letting somebody pick the interest rate without having maybe some kind of bid process. And the last comment I have is I'm also a little uneasy for you two people that we've had lots of discussions in the past about landfills and things, and you guys are getting dumped on with $16 million worth of bonds that you have had 5 minutes of discussion on, and that's it, and asking to make a vote on. So I hope you understand it. If you don't, please speak your piece. But I'm not really sure, Bob, where I'm going with this. I'm just kind of talking. I'm sorry. I just don't know whether we should be bidding this. It's a big number, all right? And interest rate, 0.5% is a lot of money every year for 30 years, or however long we end up issuing them for before we call them in or something. How much additional staff time are we talking about, T? Because there's definitely other firms out there that will do this.
Right. So the last time we used a different firm, it was a significant amount of staff time because we had to get them all the financials. They asked for copious amounts of information from Hannah. At that time, it would have been Linda Cook and myself.
Right. Yeah.
I can't give you a set number of hours or anything like that, and I can't give you an estimate there.
I don't disagree with Terry, but I do in a way. The biggest, as I sat here and listened to you and Jay talk and Tobias chime in, I understood what was going on because I've sat through a dozen or 2 dozen bond issues here, and so I got it. But I looked out at the people that were here in the audience tonight, and I looked around the council ring a little bit, and some of them were a little, what are they talking about? Because I understand the verbiage. I've spent a lot of time around you.
Right. We've talked about it.
Yeah. Well, not just that.
Bonds.
Bonds, and my wife worked in the industry as well. I understand it.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, I remember the guy she worked for. So, but the thing is we hire, and I appreciate what you're saying, but we hire experts all the time. Terry can take this apart. Tobias can take this apart. Linda Cook and Hannah can take it apart. But to say that you can find in the newspaper what the interest rate is, I can do that too.
You can find a range.
Range. Yeah, you're right. I didn't mean
0.5% range is $80,000 on this baby.
I completely understand, but I'm just saying that at times that we have to hire an expert. He comes, we can ask him those questions, and if something goes south, we have somebody to hold responsible. So I do understand what Terry's saying. I agree with the vast majority of it. I still want to have the guy here selling me a bond.
That's the first time I've seen him. We've gone through enough bonds. That's the first time I've seen him, but it was nice that he was here for 16 million.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I can't tell you how many times I talked to Mark Mumford when Mark was here. So
I was really close to Mumford. How do you two feel about voting on this issue? Do you feel like you've been exposed to it enough?
No.
Yeah, I'd like to learn
The
more
first
about
time
it.
I saw this was, well, Wednesday when the packets came out.
Well, delaying the vote's going to be an issue because in order to issue the bonds in January, so we receive the funds in February, we've got to get to the county board in December. In order to do that, we need to pass it tonight. The landfill you have is going to be out of space in October. In order to get the dirt guy moving in time, so you have it built in enough time. I mean, we've been down this path for a decade. That's kind of where you're at right now.
Well, since you, I guess we knew this was coming, why have we waited until the very last meeting that we possibly could pass it at?
Because you've been waiting for the engineers to get done with design work. They've got one bid in, we're out for bid on another piece, and so we're trying to get all those lined up.
To throw two new people that know, I'm sorry, I should speak for you, Alex.
You're fine.
That honestly know very little, never seen bond, and the first one that gets put in front of us is 16 million. And I don't know, Ted, how many that high you have seen?
Pardon me?
How many that high have you been a part of?
That's probably close to the highest one. But I look at a $1 million bond or $2 million bond in the same way I look at a $16 million one or the $10 million bond we had for the fire department. My only suggestion to you is that if you're not comfortable with it, abstain from the vote.
I'd like to, I guess, I want to say this, postpone until the next meeting to where, we have a little bit of a chance to digest this a little bit, where to give everybody a little bit of a time here. I can't see where, Tobias said, well, we got to do it tonight, otherwise we can't get it done. I don't know what 2 weeks is, if that's really going to set us back.
We've been discussing this for 2 years. Why do you want to wait for another 2 weeks?
That's the comment I was going to make. The council had approved this project several years ago, was discussed it for a long time. Even though we got 2 new council members, we got to trust the previous council members that sat in here and voted for this project. And I think we need, like Tobias, we got to stay on schedule and get it moved forward.
We bought that property 20 years ago knowing we were going to do this. This isn't new.
It's just the timing of the new people coming on more than anything. But
For me, a little bit of it is Terry being cautious, because I know Terry and know what he's done in the past, what he's done in his career.
I just want you to know I'm 100% behind the landfill project, okay? I'll vote yes on this, okay? But I do have a concern for you guys not doing what you're doing without having any knowledge in your background.
Other discussion from the public?
Hi, my name is Dustin Keeson. This is my first meeting. I live at 1510 North 10th Street here in Beatrice. And I've lived here basically since 4th grade. I don't know, I'm just a dumb welder. I don't know all this money talk and everything, but I had this brilliant idea. You guys are running around with chickens with their heads cut off, trying to dig a hole in the ground to dig shit, put stuff in it. And it's going to cost a lot of money. So, Singapore, I don't know if you guys know anything about Singapore, but it's an island, and what they do with their trash is they have a big we take care of, I don't know how, like, the whole county on trash and everything. Just stick it in a disintegrator, okay? I know burning it, but they're, in Singapore, they have filters and everything. And you guys can run your plant, your buildings off that energy that goes in, because it's steam driven. And by the time the air comes out of it, it's nothing but moisture. It's clean air. So, you know, I'm just, like I said, I'm just a stupid welder, but sometimes good ideas are, you know, just a, you know, earful away. You know, I've had this idea forever, and nobody will ever understand the way I think, but, you know, I don't know what you know, I know what bonds are and everything, but you're digging a hole and putting a building there. And I know there's plastic there and everything, but you got to think that our kids, it's going to be there until whenever. So why spend all that money on a damn hole while you can just burn it and it's clear? They put that stuff in the ocean because it's so pure. You know, that's what they build their island off of. So, you know, I'm just a suggestion or anything, but I know nobody's going to listen, but it was just a suggestion.
And it's probably not more than not listening, it's more of the amount of federal rules and regulations that we have to put up with here in the
Yeah, but they
US.
do it down in the islands. I've been to the Virgin Islands and stuff, and they do the same thing.
Do they? Okay.
And it's all about, it's not about, you can do anything, you put your mind to it. It's about doing your research on it and what you can achieve on doing your research, and the government will allow you to do. Saying something that says that, you know, oh, well, we got to look into it. Well, if we're going to hire somebody for a whole crap load of money, we can look into something like that. And I'll be willing to do the research because I'm full into that, you know. So, and the recycling center, do we actually have a recycling center anymore? Like, I heard that we guys took the boxes and stuff out.
They're back down there now.
Okay.
However, they don't have, that doesn't have anything to do with this particular.
Okay, I was just
resolution.
curious.
Yes,
But,
I think as of today, they're set back up.
okay,
Yep. Right.
that's just my suggestion
Okay.
with the
Thank you.
thing.
Thank you.
Other discussion needed?
Bob, I would just, T, I would just ask whenever you bring these to market and what the rate is, like in your Friday report or something, you'd let us know what it is. I'm down here enough, I probably would know anyway maybe, but I'd appreciate if you do that.
Will do.
Okay.
Okay. Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Okay, we move on to ordinances. We have the ordinance amending section 307A, comma V, comma and AA of Article 3 of the zoning ordinance of the city of Beatrice, ordinance number 94-13 relating to the agricultural sales and services, pet sales, and veterinary services.
I move that said ordinance be given number 24-33, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable, so your vote, please.
We need a second.
Whoops, time out. We need a second.
Second.
All right, I have a second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that passes 7-1. Ordinance number 24-33, the first, 24-33, the second, and 24-33, the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 24-33 be passed and approved.
Second.
Any more discussion needed up here? From the public? Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Ordinance amending Table 4-2 of Article 4 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Beatrice, ordinance number 94-13, relating to permitting uses by zoning district.
I move that said ordinance be given number 24-34, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that is 7-1. Ordinance number 24-34 by number only the first time, 24-34 the second, and 24-34 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 24-34 be passed and approved.
Second.
Any discussion needed? Your vote, please.
Oh, no, sorry.
And that passes.
That's it's supposed to be a yes, Dana?
Yes, I'm sorry.
all
It's
right.
not
Hey.
behaving. Is
Here
that
we go.
yes?
Yeah, there you go.
Don't worry.
Hitting the off.
Rich had
That's okay. No worries. Another ordinance to convey real estate, a portion of the Stoddard Elementary site owned by the City of Beatrice to Hoppy and Sons LLC.
I move that said ordinance be given number 24-35, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Ordinance number 24-35 by number only the first time, 24-35 the second, and 24-35 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 24-35 be passed and approved.
Second.
So we're working on transferring of the Stoddard School to Hoppy. Everything's going along smoothly. We're getting ready for closing. One of the things we need to finalize is having an actual ordinance for the city council to transfer it. We've done the contract, you've had the resolution, you've had those things. And so this is just checking one of those boxes of documents that we need to have done. So we brought it before you tonight. So hopefully we can transfer it in early January then.
Dumb question, probably. We have an agreement with them that they're going to develop it in such and such a way?
Yes.
Taylor, we do? Okay, we do?
Yep.
Okay, that's all I needed.
Other discussion? From the public? Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. That ends the ordinances. Move on to public forum. The purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council this time. Anyone here for the public forum? Seeing none, we'll move on to discussion reports, which we have none. Tonight, we will have an executive session for concerns of real estate. Mr. McLean will take us into the executive session.
I move that Beatrice City Council go into closed session at 8:08 p.m. for the protection of public interest to discuss real estate.
Second.
Your vote is 8-0. Thank you.